You said you lived in Latin America part of your life, right?
Yeah.
And
Yes.
you learned a
Yes.
little Spanish, right? ¿Tú hablas español?
I used to speak really, really well.
Okay.
Now it's
Okay.
mediocre.
Well, we'll play a little game. How do you say the
Yeah.
word wife in Spanish?
Esposa.
What's the plural of wives?
Mis esposas,
Esposas.
I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the word for handcuffs in Spanish?
Oh God, I don't even know.
It is esposas.
Oh, is it?
You can ask this. I've asked this to plenty of first, Spanish is people's the first language, and maybe, but they speak English as well. And you can
Yeah.
ask a Spanish speaker, how do you say wives?
Yeah.
Esposas. How do you say handcuffs? And they just get this weird look on their face, kind of like, I never thought of that before. How come the same word in Spanish for wives and handcuffs? The same word.
Okay, so we already had this issue with sexual shame, and now what we're saying is, yeah, it's going to get layered on, perhaps even more, and the experiences of feeling liberated, free in interactions, especially early in your life, are going to be very few and far between for young people. So how do we unwire that sexual shame where it's, it was a secretive thing that I never talked about, all this, and it felt good? If I look at my own self, I see, wow, it's only, again, recently that I'm realizing the level of disconnection to my body that I'll have in a sexual experience. So how do we work on unwiring that, coming back and not having that shame be such an integral part of what we connect with those experiences?
Okay. Let me approach this twofold, because there might be a piece that actually can also help that previous question, but they're
Sure.
very much related. One of the things I say in No More Mr. Nice Guy is don't try to do this alone. Don't try to break free from nice guy syndrome on your own. You didn't become a nice guy in social isolation. You won't break free in social isolation. I began what I call my recovery journey by going to a 12-step group for sexual addiction. I, quickly realized I wasn't a sex addict. I wasn't having enough sex to be a sex addict. Even I wanted to have sex with my wife, and she kept saying, "You're a sex addict." I go, "Well, we had a lot of sex before we got married. Now we don't." So I went.
Can I pause you for 1 second? I think that is such a common frame that occurs with nice guys, which is at least what I thought my problem was. And what the actual problem was, I was like, if only I could be more receptive to feedback from other people, that would solve everything. And it's similar to what you're describing. Is I thought that I was this pushy sex addict, and what I was in was a marriage where we weren't connecting at that level. I find that so fascinating, and I think deeply true for a lot of people.
And I'm so grateful for it, because I landed in a 12-step group for sex addicts. Quickly learned I wasn't a sex addict, but it was all guys. So it was my first men's group, and most of them needed to be there. They had some gnarly shit going on. And I'd share, and they'd probably go, "Thanks for sharing, Robert. Why are you here?" But for the first time in my life, I came aware of what toxic shame was and what it felt like to start revealing it. And in the process, to speak it out loud and to go through that cathartic experience, and to get feedback from people that had no judgment of me, and then didn't think I was bad. Around that time, I also started working with a therapist, a woman therapist. I'd go to my 12-step group and reveal stuff I'd never revealed to anybody. Again, remember, I grew up in fundamental Christian church, critical, angry father, angry feminism of the 60s. I had plenty of shame tucked down there. I'd go to a therapist and I'd put stuff out. And she goes, "Well, let's explore that, see what it means." I go, "Oh, you're not shocked?" No. I got into a men's group and, just kept doing that work. So the only way I know to really do the deep work around sexual shame is to do it with other safe people. It'd be great if you could do it on your own. Journal writing can be helpful. You can do some dream work. Maybe you probably do some stuff, but you really do have to go be around people where you reveal things you don't want to reveal and release what you've been hiding. Find out that the people don't all have nervous breakdowns, and that they actually give you more accurate affirmations. I remember, I'll just give this as an example. My second wife, who said, "You need to go get into therapy," because prior to being married, she liked having sex. On her honeymoon, she said, "Now that we're married, aren't you glad we don't have to pretend to like sex anymore?" I said, "Wait a minute, I wasn't pretending." So about 2 years later, I acted out. She says, "You need to go get help." So I went and got help. And something came up after I was already going to this 12-step group, working with a therapist, and it was a sexual impulse. And it was kind of a dark sexual impulse, and it scared me. I didn't act on it, but in the past, I would have just pushed that way down, even for my own kind of consciousness. And so I went to my 12-step group and I shared it. I just said, thanks for sharing, Robert. And, okay, that wasn't bad. I went to my therapist and I shared it. She said, well, let's kind of explore and see what that's about. I said, okay, wasn't bad. So I'm driving home and I'm thinking, all right, I'm batting 1,000, 2 for 2. I need to go tell my wife this. And I used to tell my wife her middle name ought to be Overreact, because that's what she did in every situation. She never actually overreacted to that because she knew it was true. I went home, told her exactly the impulse I'd had, that I told it to my 12-step group, I told it to my therapist, and I told it to her. And she looked at me and she said, that kind of concerns me, doesn't surprise me, and thank you for telling me. And she never brought it up again. And I thought, wow, how come no one told me this a long time ago, that you can actually find safe people, go reveal the things you think make you a bad person, that make you ugly, evil, sinful, not good enough. Go reveal it, get positive feedback. Then you can start revealing that through word, action, just how you live, to everybody else on the planet. And realize not everybody's going to think you're amazing, but you're not going to be near as offensive to near as many people as you think you are. That's when we get to be real, and people get to respond to that realness. That to me, that's what what charisma is. You're being you. You're not holding anything you about you, but you have to go do that in a safe place. I don't know any other way around it.
How can we identify safe places? Because I know that some people, I feel very fortunate to have had opportunities to do that were safe. And I know that not every place is safe for that. In fact, you could share that with someone, even a terrible therapist who's like, oh my God, this is horrible. We need to report you to the authorities. Or so how can we start to feel through what would be a safe place?
That's a good question.
For that?
I tell people, begin with the list of people who are not on the list is family and your girlfriend or your wife, because they might be shocked. They might be shaming, because most of us probably have at some point been shamed by people who said they loved us. We need to go find people who have no investment in us having investment in them having to like us and think we're good, and they're professionally trained to recognize what is the revelation of shame. I'd highly recommend a therapist. 12-step groups can fall into that. Men's groups, coaching, I think would fall into it. One problem with the coaching world is that there's no real requirements for a coach to be a coach. And I'll come back to how maybe you can test any of these people. It could be a minister or a rabbi. Unfortunately, I'm not singling out ministers or rabbis, but I've known plenty of people in therapy told me that I told my abuse to so-and-so and got abused all over again, either verbally or physically abused again.
Oof.
So there is a vulnerability, especially if you're revealing abuse issues, that sometimes predators do take advantage of that. So here's my best test. This isn't just like testing, with a therapist or a group. I would recommend this like in a relationship, friendship, interpersonal relationships. It's a stair-step method where you reveal a little bit about you and then test. See what the people do with it. Reveal a little bit about you, test. Reveal, test. Don't just gush out your whole life story. Don't hold everything back to where nobody gets to know you. With new people, practice revealing little parts about you. See, do they respect it? Do they hold it in confidence? Do they share reciprocally? Do they kind of match your share with their own personal share? If after a few of these tests, you either find out they gossiped about you, or they shamed you, or they did something negative, or they never reciprocally share back, I'd quit revealing to those people. They're not safe people. So that's the test I would put in any situation, whether it's a new friend, a girl you're dating, guy you're dating, a therapist you're seeing, coach you're working with, men's group you're in. Share, test, share, test, share, test. And especially if like you're in a group or something like that, are other people in that group also sharing and revealing in similar kind of ways? So it's a process you can actually be conscious of how to go about sharing.
Yeah, I love that. I think those are all great things. I think I was lucky enough to instinctively do some of that. And then what I've developed having done that is a sense of if I'm being seen or not in a relationship and in an interaction, which I can feel it. I can feel if somebody's projecting onto me their issue or if they are seeing and receiving me, which is not a capacity that I had 3, 4, 5 years ago. If they projected onto me, I was like, they're seeing me. This is a horrible thing that is about me, when really you might just have activated some shame in them by opening up about something they have encountered in themselves.
And we all do that with each other without knowing it. That's one of the beauties of conscious relationships, is knowing, say you and your partner, you're going to project stuff onto each other from your past experiences. You're going to bring up your defense mechanisms from your past experiences. If you know that's going to happen, you guys can watch them and be the observer of them. And especially maybe if you have outside help to help you watch them and observe them, because sometimes they're harder for us to see in ourselves. But that's why relationships can be so dynamic and so powerful, is that knowing we all are projecting old stuff on our partner all the time.
Yeah.
And if we just know that, it kind of lets you work with it.
Yeah. One thing that that is coming up, I was just reviewing No More Mr. Nice Guy, and I was going through my highlights, and you tell one story. I think we can think of projections sometimes as, I'm projecting the bad things, but sometimes we can project our power onto other people. So it's one of the stories that you tell is about a guy who was trying to get sex from his wife, and your advice to him was go on a 6-month moratorium, no sex, reclaim your own sexual contact with yourself. So you can still be sexual inside of your own body. You can still, feel good yourself, but you are not going to seek that in her. And if you'd like, you can tell the story, because I think
I'm smiling because that was about me.
Yeah. Oh, that was about you. That story was you. Yeah. Oh my goodness! Why did you say that?
I will say, I don't hold anything back. In the book, I often tell people, No More Mr. Nice Guy is my autobiography. I just use other people's names to tell my story. Now, that's not completely true. The majority of the people in the book are a real life person or a combination of 2 or 3 people. But there's one person in there that's a lot me. Not exactly, but a lot me.
Got it.
During my marriage to my second wife, who on our honeymoon said, we don't have to pretend to like sex. We got into therapy and into couples therapy together. And no matter what I did, no matter how much I worked on me and did my stuff, she still wasn't sexually available. And it became just ongoing battle. I was constantly frustrated and resentful and, manipulative. And she was constantly angry and withdrawn. And, it wasn't going well. And our therapist suggested it. And I did 2 different sexual moratoriums. And most people go, why would I do that? But you know what? It was one of the most empowering things I'd done, both of them. They came at different times in the relationship where, I made a decision. I've never been into porn or excessive masturbation, but that was off the table. No passionate interplay with my wife, no flirting with anybody else, no intrigue with anybody. My wife and I could give each other a hug and a goodbye kiss, goodnight kiss, but that was it. The second time I did it, I actually moved to a completely different bedroom, different bed. And a few things came out. What was interesting is when, the very day that I began sexual moratoriums, both times, my wife became overtly sexual, being seductive. I won't go into details, but just like, what the hell, why can't you be this? But, she became seductive. And of course, okay, finally, she's being seductive. She's being sexually available. But it was a dance that we had, right? As long as I was pursuing, she could go like that. When I quit pursuing, she went into her mode, which is part of her story without going into that detail. But the most powerful thing for me, two other powerful things. One is it really helped me break free of a lot of my nice guy stuff, because a lot of nice guy stuff is tied to, I'll be nice to women, so they'll have sex with me. If I'm not trying to get a woman to have sex with me, I don't have to fucking be nice to her. Now, I don't mean that in a mean, abusive way. I didn't have to give too many fucks of, is she upset? Is she going to like that? Is that going to bother her? Is she in a bad mood? Because I thought I don't have to do what I call maintaining the possibility of availability, right? I don't have to do anything to make sure she's in a good mood later on, wants to have sex. She can be in a bad mood because we ain't having sex for 6 months. So I don't even have to worry about it. I became a much more integrated man. That's what I talk about. As we move out of nice guy syndrome, it's about becoming integrated. I became more honest, more real, making my needs a priority, going where I wanted, hanging out with who I wanted, doing what I wanted to do without this fear of she might be upset about it. So I became much more authentic and integrated, which actually made me more attractive to her. The second thing is that it reclaimed, in a sense, the keys to my sexuality, that I realized that I did not have to give the power over my sexuality to another human being. Nobody had control of whether or not I got to have sex, how I had sex, when I had sex. That was not the keys I was going to give to any other human being. That was my keys under my control. So that was very empowering as well.
How did you relate? So I didn't realize you weren't allowed to masturbate or anything like that for that 6 months. Yeah. How did you relate to your own sexual energy without repressing it? Because I know there is a way of doing that, which is the old traditional Catholic way, which is I have an urge, push it down, push it down, push it down. And I'm learning that there is a way to relate to that energy that is still pleasant and pleasurable without, expressing it via sexual contact.
I think I'll start with misperceptions. I think a lot of guys, especially when you're young, you do. Most young men do have a pretty strong sex drive. It's built into us. Mother Nature likes young men having strong sex drive. But I think most of us overestimate our need for sex, and especially our need for ejaculation. And one of the things I see, I think in a lot of men that I work with, young and old, is that a lot of men have, I call it an addiction to ejaculation. I think porn addiction is rampant. A lot of men, in my day, you had to find your father's Playboy or Hustler stuck under the mattress somewhere.
Yeah. My
son and stepson, they're both 38 now, grew up with broadband internet where, they could just go get it anywhere. And so, of course, we have a generation of men that just have that instant access to sexual stimuli. And most of us live in a fantasy world. Our grandfathers, our great-grandfathers maybe saw 3 pretty women in their lifetime and maybe never saw any of them naked. You and I have seen multitudes of pretty women and lots of them naked, right? That's, it's kind of like everything's different. So what's happened is men, I think, have become hypersexual, for lack of a better term, and especially addicted to ejaculation, where everything is focused on I got to come, I got to come, I got to come. And one of the things that happens if you do a sexual moratorium, the first week or two for most men, it's not bad. It's not bad. Second couple of weeks, it gets tough. All of a sudden, you got all kinds of impulses going on. And that's usually where most of the slips occur, about week 2 through week 3, week 4. Getting to the other side of that, and this was even before I knew about macrocircular breathing and things like that when we talked about that. Once you get to the other side, if you've taken physical contact, flirting, fantasy, pornography, and even habitual masturbation out of the picture, most men's sex drives actually kind of calm down. They ebb because there's nothing keeping them stimulated. Right. Granted, you can still walk down the street and just go to the mall, women walking by in their Lululemon and whatever, there's still plenty, to keep your rubberneck and all that. But even if you cut that out, and Freud and many other psychiatrists have talked about sublimating our sex drive into action and into productivity. So one thing we can do is we can take that energy drive. Most Eastern religions, Eastern thought, really discourage men from ejaculation. And, they even have charts of at this age, you should only ejaculate every this many months. And my age is like never. I should never ejaculate because you're dispelling your chi, your life force, your energy. And we need that chi. We only have so much to put into our mission, our purpose, our karma, and what we're supposed to be getting done in life. So we can sublimate sexual energy into productive activity, especially if we've cut out all those ways we go. Especially if we've cut the shame compartment out of sex. Here's where men get most of their sexual hit is going into what I call a shame compartment. Remember, shame got cross-wired to sex. So, having a fantasy while we're having sex with our girlfriend about somebody else. Well, we feel shame about it, but it's arousing.
Yeah.
Sneaking off to look at porn where we might get caught, might get found out. It's arousing. So if we can get out of those shame compartments, clean up our sexuality, right? Just get it clean.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see that it'll ebb. It'll kind of you'll start noticing when it just has little ups and downs, and you'll start, I'm feeling a little aroused right now, and you can say, I wonder why, and you can kind of get in touch with some thought you had or a stimulus or somebody walked by, and you can start paying attention to it, and then just go, okay, you notice it. Now, since then, I started practicing more of a tantric approach to sex about 10 years ago, where I introduced to my then girlfriend, now wife, Lupita. She wanted to have sex every day. And by then I was already in my late 50s. And I didn't have the sex drive to have sex every day, especially to ejaculate every day. And so some guys came to a workshop with me and taught me about the tantric approach. So I told her, I said, hey, I want to play a game. I'm not going to ejaculate for a week. She goes, you can't do that. I said, I'm going to try. She says, can I try to make you come? And I said, by all means, try your best. And so then I got to talking to these guys a little more, and they said, try to go like 2 weeks, to begin with. Mm-hmm. Maybe even set a goal of 21 days without ejaculation. So I went back and told her, I said, I'm going to go 2 weeks. She goes, I don't think you can do that. So I'm going to try. She said, can I try to make you come? Mm-hmm. And she was a little bit resistant to it at first. She's a smart lady, though. It took her about 3 days to realize my sexual energy went up. My sex drive stayed up. If I wasn't ejaculating, sex went a lot longer. And with my wife, when sex goes longer, it gets dirtier and nastier because that's her nature. And so she started telling everybody she knew, every woman she knew, every gay friend she knew, tell your guy, don't come. It gets better. So there's a lot of breathing you can do to move the sexual energy, to focus it on like say, productive activity. So there's things that can be done with.
Sure.
But mostly we kind of got to clear out all that stuff in the shame compartment, all of that keeps us as that heightened sexual state of thinking, I got to have it.
I think that's, what's clicking with me is that there's online communities of NoFap, you might be familiar, which is about not ejaculating. Sure. And I see in that, the thing that is really sticking is that in some strains of that community, they're shame driven. It's like, I have to do this because I'm so ashamed. And it's whether you're doing it or not doing it, if the driver is this toxic shame that you're trying to repress down and control and steer, you're going to have an outcome that is not one that I'm interested in. Versus if you can find a way to release the shame, befriend the shame, share it with safe people and do that process, and then make a decision to whatever. Make a decision
that works for you. I agree 100% with that, because that first 12-step group I landed in was a 12-step group that had a really rigid definition of sobriety. You could only have sex in a heterosexual marriage, and no masturbation and no gay sex, and it was too much like my fundamental religion. So I only stayed in that particular group for a little while. It was a good start. And then later I found other groups that, let me define my own sobriety. What does it mean for me to be sexually sober? And without the shame attached to it, that there's badness somehow in all of this. So anything that men can do to clean out that sexual shame, I find does a lot, believe it or not, to, this is not going to sound good to a lot of guys, to actually level out the sex drive. If you take the shame out of it, it just becomes more like appetite. Okay, I'm hungry now. I'm not hungry now. If think about it, if we ate like most men do sex, every opportunity to eat, we'd be eating, because I can't miss this opportunity, right? And I better do it in secret where nobody's going to see me eating. But that's how we do our sex drive. Oh, this is an opportunity. I better take it now. I may not have one later. And so if you take all that shame out of it and we give the ownership back to us, we are the owners of our sexuality. Nobody gets to shame us. Nobody gets to tell us we're bad. Nobody gets to say you can't do this when you can do this. We get to be the owner of that. Towards the end of my marriage to my second wife, we'd been in quite a bit of therapy. And towards the end, after, doing a couple sexual moratoriums and doing a lot of work, I announced to her and my therapist, who was a woman, I said, I am going to have sex. Just because you don't want to have sex doesn't mean I shouldn't have sex. And I said, I'm going to say yes to sexual opportunities. I prefer it be with you. If it's not, I'll say yes to other opportunities. And both she and the therapist nodded their head like, how do you argue with that? If she didn't want to have sex, why did that mean I shouldn't? So that was a powerful act for me to claim my sexuality as my own, to be overt about it, to be empowered with it, to not have anything hidden, no lies, no secrets. This is totally in the open and it's mine. And that was really empowering.
I think that framework is very powerful for any need. And it's tough sometimes to really know one's needs in a relationship, but to say like, look, this is a need of mine in life. And I think you come to really relate to those as you get older and you know what is a negotiable and a non-negotiable. But I'd prefer that this exists in the context with you. I've chosen you. I'd like it to be with you, but I need to find a way to meet this. And if not with you, then with someone else. And that could be, I need to get out in nature. I'd prefer to take a walk with you, but I'm going to take a walk with the boys. And I'm not going to let you say, no, you can't do that. It can be, any sort of need. I have a need to solve a problem and do a puzzle. And I'd prefer to do that puzzle with you, but I can also do it on my own. But I think that way of relating to needs is very important and powerful.
Well, and I think what you're describing, I'm going to guess, it's just a guess. When you talk about when you're in relationship over time, how nice guy stuff starts coming in. If I had to guess, it probably does take the form of you giving up or repressing more and more of your needs and perhaps giving up more and more of your freedom. And we don't know that's happening. We don't know it's happening other than we notice when we start getting frustrated, when we start feeling resentful, when we start lashing out at the other, that it's their fault that we're not happy or we're not getting what we want. Usually that's happened because over a long period of time, we either didn't want to rock the boat, we didn't want to upset them, we didn't want a negative reaction. We just, it's easier just go read a book or just go watch TV or just go watch some porn or just pass on it this time. My buddies can go without me. We start making those sacrifices over time to go along to get along. And we don't notice we're doing it until enough of them pile up that we start lashing out, usually is what happens, or we start acting out. We start engaging in hidden, secretive, destructive behavior. All of a sudden we notice, we're on social media flirting, with some woman that, why are we doing that? Probably because we went too long without being clear about what we need in our relationship.
Yeah. In my particular flavor of it, it would come up just as for instance, like I would be playing video games. My girlfriend comes over and I don't stand up to give her a kiss at the door. And that becomes why aren't you giving me a kiss at the door? And so the way that I learned to defend my needs was by being incredibly rigid and uncompromising I am not going to give an inch on this, because if I give an inch, I dissolve and erode and I lose myself in this relationship, which made me do silly things like not be able to give my girlfriend.
And I'm not going to open her door either. Don't make me open her door. I won't do it.
A level of stubbornness that is of a deep belief that like, if I give you an inch, I'll lose the whole mile. And not that you'll take it from me, but that I'll just give it up. And so for me, it's been identifying what are the needs and what are the, sure, I can open the door, or I can stand up and greet you when you get in here.
And it's important to me that, I'm in my office. My wife just came by and waved because she's been out, and Nala left, the dog left. If I'm in my office, where I am most of the time, and, she comes in, there's French doors there, she'll usually knock and kind of open the door, say, come on in. And I have this playful rule, whatever I'm doing, if I'm on the computer, if I'm on my laptop on the couch or sitting here at my desk on the computer, I'll make her come over. I'll stop I'll tell her, give me a minute, I'll finish, turn to her. What do you need? What do you want? Listen to her. And before she goes, she has to give me a kiss. So that's the rules. Like if she comes in and says, I'm going to go run this errand, I don't have any money. And I'll go, okay, I'll get you some money, but first you got to come give me a kiss. So you can play with it to where you're still kind of playfully setting that tone. She has a need to be kissed, and you have a need to not interrupt your video game. So you can say, come over here, baby, come over. I'm about to kill somebody. Give me the kiss. Give me the kiss. Get playful with it to where you can speak her love language without you thinking you have to give up you. Because I think what you've found, we can go to two extremes. We can give up everything that's important to us and just become a nothing, thinking we're doing it for them. Or like you said, we become so rigid about it that there's no way in hell I'm giving this one up. So you can watch those patterns in yourself. Am I being, like rigid asshole for no reason, even where I'm hurting myself because I'm so bound to not give in? And then ask yourself, what do I really want? And then see if you can have a discussion with the other person, whoever it might be, about how maybe both of us can increase the odds of getting something that makes us both feel good.
Yeah. And I think that's a very creative act, because the belief that has kept me away from what do I want is, well, if I give what I want, nobody else is going to want that. But if I actually open up and go, well, what would I like? It's like, well, of course I love my girlfriend, and I want to, and I want to find time that is connected and close and loving between the two of us. And also I want to feel autonomy to like finish the thing that I'm doing and not be interrupted and not feel like I'm whipped by my girlfriend. Sorry guys, gotta go, and so there's a version of reality where what I want exactly is, or not exactly, beautifully coincides and dovetails with what she would like to have happen. But it might not be her first offer to me, which is, you got to come stand up and do it this way. It might be a response to that, which is something else,
And again, you go, hey, baby, come over here. I'll not only give you a kiss, I'll spank you before you go. Again, get playful, because, nobody's ever going to get everything they want out of any relationship. We tend infused relationships. It's kind of like, you're my girlfriend, therefore you should. You're my boyfriend, therefore you should. Yeah, and we don't have other resources. We need lots of different resources. And without going in a lot of detail, my relationship with my wife, my side of it is monogamous. I keep all my sexual energy in the relationship. The other part's more complicated. But all my sexual energy stays in the relationship. Traditionally, in most monogamous relationships, that also tends to mean giving up other freedoms, just because you've said, I won't have sex with anybody else but you. That's my tendency, and it's a lot of people's tendency. So for a few years now, I've been working on the mindset of how can I be all the way in a sexually monogamous relationship with my partner and not give up any other personal freedom. Now that's differentiation. Right? That's asking myself, what do I want? What's important to me? Now, differentiation occurs at two levels. Primary level is one that most people never get to, and that is asking ourselves, what do I want? And then charting a path for that. There's also a second level of differentiation that can only occur if the first level has occurred. The second level of differentiation is what is in the best interest of the people I love, maybe the planet that I live on, where we may decide at some level to even give up certain freedoms or wants, knowingly, consciously giving them up in a context because we know it will benefit somebody we care about. Okay? Parents do that with their children all the time. Do you want to get up at 2 a.m. and sit with your kid when you need to get up and go to work in the morning? No. But you do it because the child needs it. Are the things we need to do to, help our planet be healthy? Yeah, we probably need to do them, even if they involve some sacrifice. Again, not trying to get political, but you can't do level 2 until you do level 1. A lot of people want to skip level 1 and basically just cave their way to level 2. Oh, okay, what you want. All right, I'll do that. I'll give up my video game because I know you, blah, blah, blah. So I one of my jokes, you said you lived in Latin America part of your life. Right?
Yeah.
And you learned a little Spanish, right? ¿Tú hablas español?
I used to speak really, really well. Now it's mediocre.
Okay. Well, we'll play a little game. How do you say the word wife in Spanish?
Esposa.
What's the plural of wives?
Mis esposas. I imagine.
Okay.
Yeah.
What's the word for handcuffs in Spanish?
Oh, God, I don't even know.
It is esposas.
Oh, is it?
You can ask this. I've asked this to plenty of Spanish is the first language, but they speak English as well. And you can ask a Spanish speaker, how do you say wives? Esposas. How do you say handcuffs? And they just get this weird look on their face, kind of like, I never thought of that before. How come the same word in Spanish for wives and handcuffs? They're the same word. And the point of it is, whether we call it the ball and chain or whatever, as soon as you start giving up your wants and desires and needs to go along to get along. You're going this route now, not good. But as soon as you say, there's no way in hell I'm giving this up, you're going this route. And probably neither one are going to serve either person's growth in the relationship. But learning to ask, what do I want? What's important to me? And what's in the best interest of the people that I care about? That's a really mature person who I think is making a real difference in the world.
I love that. I love that. I'm only starting to be able to see the possibility to have both myself and a higher order us. It had previously, and this is why I had such resistance to the committed relationships, was like, if I get the higher order us, I lose the me. So I'm not gonna do that. And it's, I've had mentors and, conversations like this that are indicating, and I'm feeling it's like, oh, that doesn't have to be the case.
And actually, it's the beauty of the challenge is because culturally, the pressure is to fuse, to give up you. I mean, not just from the people you get, not just the women you get in a relationship with. It'll be all of culture. Give up you, like parents. When are you going to give us a grandchild? That's fusion, right? Give us what we want. We want to be grandparents. So there's always going to be that pressure. But the beauty of personal evolution always comes when there's an asserting of self in the midst of pressure to conform. That is why humans evolved more than any other species. We have this strong drive towards independence and this strong need for connectedness. Now, those two, they can go to one extreme or the other. We can lose ourselves completely for connectedness, or we can be the lone wolf and never have any connection. But the tension of those two things has created tremendous evolution in the human species. And that's where I say conscious relationships can be such powerful personal growth machines, because we do have that tension. The tension of you being a you and not giving up anything about you that you shouldn't have to give up anything important to you to be in a relationship. Why would you do that? But yet it's what we all kind of implicitly, unconsciously agree to. So how do you not give up any part of you, yet still make the needs and wants and desires and maybe love language of this other person a high priority? That's a tension, right? But it's a beautiful tension that if you stay conscious and maybe have some help with it, the two people involved can really grow.
Yeah, it's a beautiful question. And already in that, it's like the level of compromise that opens up for me of the things that don't matter that I would be happy to do. The opening of, I don't care about it. That doesn't bother me at all. It's what it is. Yeah. Well, just meaning that I would be happy to do all of those things as long as I got to keep myself. Yeah. And the reason that I resist that is I go, oh, this is one domino of 100. And so I appreciate that question. How do I get me and us is a really powerful one.